just simply say, I don't quite understand what you're saying to me, even if it takes that person or that group to go back to later, as I did. Because what you want to get out of any relationship, business, personal, spiritual, what have you, what you want to be able to get is understanding. And like I said, you don't want to get, because understanding obviously leads to wisdom, and wisdom puts you in position, or put an individual in a position to make the best decision. And so I would look at tone and tenor if it's something that I don't understand, even if it takes me for me to process, because everybody process information differently. And so with that being the case, it is very well common, I think, for a person to say something, whether in text or in verbal, that is interpreted to be something that it's not. It's very common. It has happened to me many times where somebody said something to me, and I had to, as I said, use the common approach and say, what did you mean by that? And I have no problem in doing that. So I think the tone and tenor, one who expresses him or herself, whether it's through verbal or text or email, whatever the case may be, in particular in text and email, because once again, to me, that's an ideal setting and situation where one, if I don't understand something, it is far more better to say I don't understand rather than jump out and say, and assume that it's another way, because it has to be amongst people that information or the perception of what one is saying is somewhat, not at all what the way the person is trying to put it. And so I think that's where we at with that in our mind.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to hear every other word. So I want make sure the audience hears everything that you're saying. So when you talk about, and when we all communicate in some form or fashion with anyone, a lot of people like to speak verbally. A lot of people like to text and email everything. I'm the type of person that likes to speak directly because a lot gets lost in translation. And some people you just talk to and text or email, there's always an issue or a problem because I think people don't know what words to choose and how to express themselves sometimes on a text or on an email or on social media. And I think it's always best. I'm old fashioned that way. Pick up the phone. If you have a relationship with somebody, pick up the phone and have a conversation. Then that way it can be hash. Well, what did you say? Or well, what were you trying to say? And I think a lot of people have the issue and the problem over text and over. So that's why I never really talk about important things over text or sensitive matters over text or email. I pick up the phone, especially if I have a relationship with someone. I rather pick up the phone and say, hey, what did you mean? What are you talking about? Or I would rather that person handle business or conversation through a telephone. I'm old fashioned that way. And then that way, right then and there, good old fashioned communication, you can ask questions and voice concerns right there. I think a lot of people use different emojis, different undertones, and they capitalize maybe, and they highlight different words and different things like that. And I say this all of the time. There's a thing called a dictionary or dictionary online. It's easy to try to find the right words to use. And I think a lot of people use the wrong words by default and by trying to rapidly write a text or send an email, and they don't take the time because everybody doesn't care about the other person on the other end. And I think when you're communicating, the first rule of communication is you got to know who you're communicating to. What are you trying to say? What are you trying to convey? And I think a lot of people don't know how to effectively communicate. And I think when you're talking to someone, it's important to try to use the right words, because people say all the time, well, I didn't mean it that way. I didn't mean to say that. That's not what I meant. you're using the literal words and all of that. But if you're using words, then you only can take them literally. If you meant something differently, then maybe you would use a different word. And I think people have a difficulty communicating in that way. Some people have a difficulty communicating in person, and it's easier for them to write it out. So it depends on who you're speaking to and what you're speaking about. But I think anytime it's a serious conversation, I think it needs to be resolved by picking up the phone. So how we send a text is impactful as words that are contained within that text and within that message. Has it ever been a time, Leroy, where you might have been talking to someone or texting or email, whatever it is, and you maybe used the wrong words or used the wrong tone, or, because you could do that in someone's face as well. Has it ever been a time that you can remember where something like that may or may not have happened with you?
Well, yes, there has been, I could say, a handful of times where I may have used the wrong tone or tenor, but at the same time, I have the ability, because of the awareness that I carry with me, to catch it and say, wait a minute, did I say that? Did I say that the wrong way or something of the kind? I can acknowledge that in the conversation, and simply because, one, my awareness is of such, as I said earlier, is that, persons have different ways of communicating and different levels of understanding about things. So I'm of the persuasion that what may be basic to me in conversation, in relationship, have you be in business or personal or even spiritual for that matter, may not necessarily be basic to the next person. And so in that, I have to give way. It's called give way in communication. Give way to what the person is trying to express. Is what they're trying to express important, or at least how important it is to the subject, or if not, then what I find is that I'm pretty much talking to nobody but myself. Mm-hmm. So my awareness is of where, I have done that, but at the same time, I can catch it. I've done that a number. In fact, the truth be told, I've done that once or twice a day. Where, I took something, I had to catch it and say, no, wait a minute, I didn't mean to say it that way. And, that's, pretty much, the way it is, the way it comes to be.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I just, I'm not sure what's wrong, but I won't say that anymore. I've probably said that a million times today. Most important thing is the conversation. So hopefully, when it's played back, people can get what you're saying, because I definitely don't want them to miss what you're saying. And if you're dropping jewels, I want them to be able to catch it. But I think even when you talk about being self-aware and you know when you say it, I think it's impossible for everybody to know when they say something the wrong way. Because if they knew that they were saying something the wrong way, hopefully they wouldn't say it the wrong way. You know what I mean? So hopefully we've all been guilty of using not so good tones to express ourselves. I definitely can speak for myself on this. It's plenty of times where I might have said something, my tone might have said something different than my words. So I think that is just a natural thing. If you are maybe texting and you're doing something, your tone might be different. Or if you're speaking to someone face to face and you're really not maybe paying attention to what they're saying, or if you're just waiting for your time to speak, because a lot of people communicate in that manner too. They don't take the time to listen, to see. And I think you have to cater communication, as I stated earlier, to who you're speaking to. If it's a work thing, if it's a friendship thing, if it's a romantic relationship, I think that each way you communicate needs to be tailored to that person and what you're speaking about. And it's all about, just like when you're speaking at an event, it's all about knowing your audience, know the person that you speak to. And I think just like when writing, if you're writing a book or writing a paper for school, it's all about editing and rewriting and making sure you reread what you write to not offend someone, because offending someone can cost you a relationship. It can cost you a job. It can cost you a friendship, whatever the case may be, especially if it's happened several times. One time, 2 times, 10 times. But if it happens several times and it's all the time, well, I didn't mean that, or that's not what I meant to say, or that's not the word I wanted to use. And I think it's up to that person, whether it be you, I, or whoever listening, needs to really sit down and say, okay, well, how am I communicating? Am I as good of a communicator as I think? And I think it's important for us to check ourselves because it's always not the other person. It may not be the other person on the other end receiving it wrong. It could have been you saying it wrong, or I saying it wrong, or whomever saying it wrong. So I think it's important to really look at that and think about, well, how would I feel if this person said this or do this or did this? So I think it's important to really think about the tone, whether it's, I remember I used to be a customer service manager for MCI, or supervisor, I should say. And I remember I used to take the irate calls. I was in charge of taking the irate calls and I'm dating myself. I said MCI, but when I first started doing customer service years ago, they used to provide us a mirror. And we used to have to speak into the mirror, and we would have to smile when we spoke into the mirror. As you can probably tell right now, I'm smiling. So when you're smiling, a different voice comes out, a different tone comes out. It softens the blow. It makes you welcoming. It makes you warm. So we used to have to speak into, even if it was an irate caller, we would have to speak into the mirror and help that person and have a pleasant voice. And that's all about tone. Now I could be saying, thank you so much. Thank you so much for calling MCI. Yes, I do understand that you had a charge for Liberia on your line, and I know that you did not make a call to Liberia. Unfortunately, I do understand how you feel, but I'm not going to be able to give you that credit right now. I hope you understand. We have a job to do, and blah 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 blah. That person might be upset, but then because you're not giving them what they want, but the tone is still pleasant. Now, if you said, you know what? I don't care. I'm not giving you that credit. Even though you said you don't know nobody that lives there, it's a different type of vibe that you will get, and that person may attack, or that person may get more irate, or that person may be ready to fight, even though you gave them the same answer. So it's really about the tone, and it's really about the words that are chosen when you decide to deliver whatever statement you're delivering. Will you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I so agree with that. At the same time, as I stated earlier, everybody's understanding to how they express themselves and what they express is totally different. So to me, you have to give way to, one, the content in what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. And so when you give way to that, based on my experience, if in fact that you say something and your tone or your tenor is not up to par with the person of whom you're speaking to, it has been my experience that my intuition can also kick in, which brings me to the awareness fact that says, did I say that like that? Well, I didn't mean that like that. And so, and the reason why I think it's important for one to allow some type of leadway into any conversation that he or she is having, so that way, if something is said and that person has to go back and say, did I say that way? I didn't mean that way. Or whatever the case may be, it's fine no matter how many times that they have done it. It's fine with me as long as they acknowledge it. The problem would be for me if they didn't acknowledge it. But if they acknowledge it, if they lay ownership of it, then it very well could be my job or my place to teach them how to communicate with me or with the next person.
So what
that's what coaching is all about to me.
Okay. So what if you continue to, and I just don't want to lose this thought, so my apologies, but what if you continue